water, nitrogen. They are the two most common limiting factors for our corn crop. And as you all know, nitrogen is the largest volume nutrient we supply and the most expensive. It is also the most unpredictable. The nitrogen we supply reduces to a negatively charged nitrate form. And because the soil is also negatively charged, the nitrate nitrogen is not held by the soil and it moves with water. So, wet springs and summer downpours have a huge impact on the available nitrogen for our corn crop. As a matter of fact, about 75% of the nitrogen that the plant takes up is after V10. Even after tassel, the crop will use about 25% of its total nitrogen requirement. So if you see this, which is the telltale sign of nitrogen shortage, the plant has already taken action to conserve resources by aborting kernels, cannibalizing stalks, and shortening the kernel fill. So you can see we have the potential for a really bad situation. We apply a very mobile nutrient months before the plant puts it to use. It's pretty clear that the ideal way to boost nitrogen efficiency would be to spoon feed the nitrogen so that the plant has just enough at the right time. But how much? When? And how? Those are the questions that 360 Yield Center is trying to help answer for you. Hi, I'm Ron Lloyd. I'm an agronomist and have been working with 360 Yield Center agronomy team to understand how the corn plant uses nitrogen and how we can push yields with better nitrogen application strategies. We know that it takes about 1.1 pounds of nitrogen to produce 1 bushel of corn. That nitrogen will come from a combination that is supplied from the soil, through mineralization, and the amount we supply through our commercial fertilizers, such as anhydrous ammonia, UAN solution, and urea. Modern hybrids utilize nitrogen later in the growth cycles than hybrids of the recent past. That means that a V10 corn plant needs to have about 3/4 of the nitrogen available that it will require for its life. And that means that we need a way to measure the nitrate levels in our growing crop to know, not guess, if we have enough fuel in the tank to reach our yield goal. For example, if your yield goal is 210 bushels per acre, you assume you need a total nitrogen fuel tank of 231 pounds of nitrogen. The corn plant will use about 60 pounds of nitrogen from emergence to V10, and it will require about 170 pounds after the corn is shoulder high. So we need to ensure that the emerging corn has a base of nitrogen to get it to mid-season. At mid-season, we need to know how much is in the tank and then estimate how much nitrogen we are going to get from the mineralization process. Traditional measurement tools are expensive and they have slow turnaround times. That's why we developed 360 Soilscan. Soilscan is the only nitrate tester that lets you sit at the side of the field and process soil samples and immediately receive nitrate readings and a forecast for the amount of nitrogen needed to reach your yield goal. Within 5 minutes, you can test your fresh sample and have the answer of nitrate level in your field. The 360 Soilscan machine wirelessly connects to your iPad and use your free 360 Soilscan app to operate the machine with ease and step-by-step instructions. To help guide you on the interpretation of your nitrate measurement, there is a nitrogen needs calculator located in the app. Input the yield goal, stage of growth, and organic matter of your soil, and the nitrogen needs calculator provides a forecast of the amount of nitrogen you need to supply to hit your yield goal. The calculator will give you a starting point to decide how much nitrogen you will apply in season. If you work with an agronomist in your operation, we encourage you to have them use their local knowledge and expertise to fine-tune your decision. So Soilscan is a great tool to understand how much nitrate nitrogen is available in a soil sample. The question we get is how often and where to pull samples to best understand what is really going on out in your field. We know there is variability across your fields due to slope, drainage, compaction, residue density, soil type differences, etc. But for a broad view of nitrate availability, I would suggest at minimum choose 2 locations in the field that you think are representative of the bulk area that is the highest production and the lowest production. More samples and more locations means more accuracy. And if you are planning on a variable rate application, sample based on your yield or management zones to generate the information for your variable rate program. To simplify the sample pulling process, we've developed a handy app that lets you track your sample location and can direct you back to track those levels over time. Plus, our Yield Patrol app lets you tag your samples with these QR-coded stickers. The sample is then geotagged and linked through the Soilscan software to tie the results back to that specific location. Just as important as pulling samples in the right location is pulling the sample correctly at each location. There are two considerations: depth and location. While your biannual full spectrum soil tests pull about a 6-inch sample, we are looking at our nitrogen fuel tank. So think about the rooting depth at the time of the sample and where you think your roots will reach in coming weeks. Typically, at V6 to V10, I take 12-inch cores. That is representative of what the roots will have access to. To help understand how much of the nitrogen has moved lower in the soil profile, take a 12-inch core and then go back in the same hole with the probe and take a 12 to 24-inch core to understand a larger part of the profile. And again, because we're in search of specific nutrients rather than a broad soil profile, we need to probe to ensure that we have found where the nitrogen is. If the applied nitrogen is banded, we need to do enough samples to make sure we are not pulling from the hot zone. Banded nitrogen sits in a zone about the size of a softball. We suggest using a board that is the width of your rows and holes about 3 inches apart that span all the way across the row. This helps make sure that you are pulling in a consistent pattern across the full width of your rows. If you broadcast your nitrogen, you can adjust the number of samples and know that you have a representative sample. Before measuring the sample with 360 Soilscan, be sure to mix those cores so you have a homogeneous sample that will be representative of that profile when you take your 2 scoops of soil to put into the cup to run in the machine. The sensor station will detect how many nitrate ions are in solution. The step-by-step instructions are very easy to follow on your iPad screen. This is my goal: to have a tool for my farm that gives me facts about the most expensive input I buy. New tools that let me make late season applications with just the right amount of nitrogen mean that I'm confident that I have the nitrogen in the fuel tank that will get me to the finish line. A Base Plus strategy lets me spend my nitrogen budget after Mother Nature has played her hand, whether it is a wet year with big rain events or a dry year. And late season application tools extend the side dress window so I can be confident that I have time to get the right amount of nitrogen on at the right time. Let our 360 Yield Center team put together a nitrogen strategy that helps you get the most from this important input.